So, this story happened 2 years ago. I was about 16 on a trip to Armenia with my family. We had rented a car and driven around the whole country for about 2 weeks. This incident happened about halfway through the trip and scared the living daylights out of me. So, my family and I were staying at this really fancy hotel for a night. My parents had decided to book it as a little treat because they usually just go for a regular and simple hotel. We were all excited to stay there because it was big and luxurious, with an indoor pool and gym as well. We all collectively decided to go for a dip in the indoor pool, and it was really fun. We swam around, played with some volleyballs, and just enjoyed the fact that we were the only ones in the pool. After having had our fun of splashing around, one by one, my family decided to head back to our rooms to take a shower until there was only my mother and I left. That's when this creepy guy arrived. We were still in the pool, sitting in the water when a hotel staff member entered the pool room. I knew he was staffed because he looked like a local, and he went to turn on the pool lights by the switch box on the other side of the pool. The first thing that struck me as odd was that he purposely walked by us and stared directly at me with a creepy smile. I was a bit weirded out, but many people looked at us weirdly because we looked like Europeans, light hair and skin, which is unusual for them. Anyways, he stayed in the room doing something in the corner while my mom decided that it was time for her to leave the pool and head back because I had shared my room with my sister and I knew she was probably still in the shower. I remained in the pool after my mother left. However, the guy kept giving me looks and staring at me. So, I quickly changed my mind. I got out of the water, took my towel, and started walking out. The man decided to try to come talk to me and tells me how pretty I am and how he thinks I'm so beautiful and also asks for my age, all in broken English. I just smile, nod, thank him, and leave again. I felt creeped out, but it was nothing really that unusual. I go to the women's bathroom, just next to the room with the pool, and it's just one bathroom, which is perfect since all I want to do is quickly change out of my swimsuit into some dry clothes so I don't leave a trail of water in the nice hotel. About halfway through changing, a sudden thought struck me. I hadn't locked the door. So, half naked, I just turn around and switch the lock. I kid you not, 10 seconds pass, and the doorknob wiggles. I innocently enough just guessed it was another guest wanting to change for a swim or a cleaning lady. I'm done. Maybe a minute after this, and I step out of the bathroom, and I see no one. Well, no one except the creepy guy walking away from the bathrooms. At that moment, it hit me that he was the one trying to open the door. He turns around, smiles, and walks back towards me. At this point, I booked it back to the pool to grab my stupid shoes that I had forgotten, and he's right behind, way too close for comfort. He keeps giving me these creepy compliments. I just give him fake smiles and tell him I have to go. He then follows me out of the pool area, proceeding to walk just behind me. I arrive at the exit of the wing with the pool, gym, and bathroom, and I see the door closed. My heart stops, and I'm terrified that he might have locked it. I've never been so relieved as when I opened the door with no problem. I climb the stairs to go to my room, trying to calm myself down. I get to my floor, and that's when I hear the elevator doors open. This crazy guy, he comes out of the elevator, walks to me still smiling, and points towards a flight of stairs leading to the rooftop. He asked me if I wanted to join him on the roof and look at the view together. I shakily declined his offer, and I ran to my room. I get in, lock the door, and hope he doesn't come knocking. I saw him around the hotel a few times after that, and he always tried to talk to me. I told my parents, and they were pretty freaked out, but we didn't say anything since it appeared like he was someone quite important in the hotel, a manager or something. This happened in the summer of 2010 when I was just entering my teenage years. My family took a trip to a really nice hotel in the city. I can't really remember why we decided to take the trip, but I remember a lot of my family and friends coming with and staying in the adjacent rooms. I've never asked my parents, and it's not really important to the story. To preface, I am a bit of a scaredy cat, and I always have been. I'm pretty skinny and a fragile kid, so I get spooked pretty easily. Even now, this, however, was almost definitely not me freaking myself out like I normally did. Looking back, I'm incredibly lucky that I trusted my instincts. This hotel had a strange design to it. The lobby was actually on the 4th floor, not the bottom floor, which I thought was pretty strange. To access the lobby, you had to use the elevator, and there was no way for you to get to it from the stairs. This information would have been nice before everything happened, as you'll soon find out. The hotel was arranged in a square shape. Every floor was lined with a balcony, and you could look down on the lobby and cafe area from your floor. Essentially, if you were walking to your room, you could be seen from anyone that was on your floor if they just stepped out of their room and looked around. I was always afraid I'd fall over the balcony and sail down the 8 stories to my death, but luckily, the rails were high enough to a point where I wasn't too concerned for my safety. The first day or two was nice. My friends and I hung out and played cards all day, or we watched whatever was on TV at night. We explored the halls of the hotel, and we would tell each other ghost stories. It was a really fun time, even though I didn't fully understand why we were there. On the 3rd day, though, things got really strange really fast. I woke up to the sound of screaming coming from outside of my door. Now, because of the hotel's design that I mentioned, the sounds from the lobby would echo all the way up to the top of the building. So, when I walked outside to investigate, I immediately looked over the balcony to see what the commotion was about. I saw a girl lying on the ground with eggs and milk splattered everywhere around her. People were rushing to help her, and I heard a couple of people telling each other to call the cops. It seemed like the girl was unconscious, maybe she had passed out or something. I scanned the lobby and saw that my family and a couple of my friends were in the lobby getting breakfast, also staring at the incident in front of them. I decided I'd rush down to meet them to find out what happened. The elevator was on the opposite side of my floor, so I took the stairwell located right next to my room. We were on the 7th or 8th floor, so I knew I only had to take about 4 flights down. Not a big deal. I descended for a little while, looking for the number 4 on the wall or the letter L. I passed floor 5, ready to find a door to the lobby. I took about 2 more flights of steps before realizing that there hadn't been a door for the 4th floor, nor there hadn't been a door for the 3rd or 2nd. Now, at this point, I probably should have turned back, but I continued down because I was tired and I didn't want to climb back up. There were some weird side hallways that went to pitch black areas with a bunch of piping and wiring, and though I was curious to explore, I passed by them. I quickly hit the bottom floor, a dimly lit and cold room with cinder block walls and concrete floors. In front of me was a set of double doors. I hesitated at first, but I assumed that this was just another way back to the lobby, so I opened them and entered. Behind the doors was a massive warehouse-type room, probably the size of a smaller basketball court. The only light coming in was from the stairwell behind me, so I really wasn't able to see much. I was probably in the storage room for the hotel. I looked around, and I saw an elevator in the back of the room, so I made my way towards it. I closed the door to the stairwell, and I began to walk in the dim light. The room was super muggy and dusty, and it seemed like nobody had been down there in a long time. As I got closer to the elevator, I noticed it was a little bigger than the elevators in the lobby and the other floors. I pressed the up button but got no response. There was a card swiper next to the button, must have been for employees only, I thought. I turned back towards the stairwell doors, making my way past the chairs and tables along the wall. When I got to the door, I gave it a tug, locked, of course. This is when things started to hit me, and I realized I was stuck in the dark, dusty basement of a hotel. I didn't have a phone because my parents wouldn't let me get one until I graduated middle school, so I couldn't call anybody. Everyone likely assumed I was also asleep in the room, so I began to freak out, believing that nobody was going to come looking for me. I searched around the warehouse, looking for other ways out. Some areas of the place were better lit than others, so I looked around in those areas first. After a while, there was one other set of doors that I found, but it happened to be locked as well. I began to cry, scared that nobody would ever find me in the basement. I swear it felt like hours, but but I think only a handful of minutes passed before I heard the door creak open. It wasn't the door from a stairwell, rather, the second door that I had found. A slim middle-aged man in a lab coat came out of the doors. Now, if this was 21-year-old me seeing this man, I would be very confused as to why this guy was wearing a lab coat in a hotel. But I was only 12 or so at the time, and I immediately was relieved at the sight of an adult who looked smart. I approached him with tears in my eyes, and he immediately looked surprised to see me, as you'd expect. "What are you doing down here?" he yelled. "I got lost on my way down to the lobby, and I've been locked in here. Do you have a key?" I was shaking, just eager to get out of there. He didn't answer my key question and instead said, "I know a way out of here. Follow me." He looked nervous, and though it was dim, I could see sweat glistening from his forehead and behind his glasses. I continued to follow him, but I was now nervous myself. We had passed the door to the stairs, and we were now headed toward a darker side of the basement away from the elevators. He looked like he had no clue where he was leading me, as he kept checking around him, almost as if he was taking in his surroundings for the first time. We turned a corner and began walking towards the boxes, a dead end. I immediately froze, realizing that something was very, very wrong. This guy had no idea where he was going, nor did he appear to work at the hotel. I said with my voice shaking, "Okay, where are we going?" He turned and said, "This way, just follow me." I knew that there were no doors by those boxes because I had checked there first after I found out the stairwell door was locked. I want to thank whatever God is up there for gifting me with the idea I had next. I started yelling just as loud as I could. I yelled so loud I gave myself a headache. The man, irritated and plugging his ears, began yelling back at me, "What are you doing? Be quiet." I continued to yell, and I don't even remember how long I was yelling, but finally, the man snapped and began quickly walking towards me. I went in a full sprint towards the stairwell doors, hoping to God they'd somehow magically open. He didn't even run after me, but he walked sternly behind me, muttering things like "stupid kid" and other kind compliments. I was about 5 feet from the door when somebody burst through. My savior was a hotel janitor who had heard the screaming from the stairwell. He saw the situation, me and some random guy in a lab coat in a locked basement, and immediately told me to get behind him. The janitor asked me who the man was, and I said I had no idea, that he had come in through the door on the other side of the room, and I pointed to it. The janitor quickly radioed into the desk that he had found a child in the basement, and quietly so that I wouldn't hear, he said, "This man came from outside. Get security or something like that." The man in the lab coat started trying to argue with the janitor, claiming that he was simply looking for a bathroom. But the janitor clearly wasn't buying it and kept saying things like, "Wait till security gets here and talk to them about it." I was standing beside him the whole time, trying to take in what was happening, confused out of my mind. Eventually, an employee from the front desk arrived and took me back up the steps to the lobby where I met with my family, who surprisingly had no idea I was missing. I told them the story, crying and shaking, and they hugged me tightly, thanking the employee over and over again for their help. I never got to thank that janitor, though. Looking back now, I absolutely have no clue what that man was doing in the basement. I don't have any information as to what happened afterwards or who he was, but I do know for a fact that the incident with the girl in the lobby was unrelated, something about low blood sugar, not entirely sure. I have thought about that day a lot, and the explanation I can put together is that the door I had found in the basement led to the streets of the city, where he must have wandered in from. I have no clue what his intentions were, or why he was wearing a lab coat, or even why he chose to pretend to know the way out. This is still an ongoing ordeal, and it started last week. I'm still trying to find out how to handle the insanity that has quickly taken over my life. I've recently moved to a new town, and I have been job hunting. I stopped by a hotel on the shoreline, and I went in to see if they needed someone for desk work. Inside, it was vacant, dark, and smelled stale. The man behind the desk had an extremely thick accent, and it was difficult for me to understand him. It seemed like he was the only person in the whole building, and I got a strange vibe from the whole place. But I stayed to fill out the application, and I turned it in as quickly as possible. I could feel him staring at me the entire time. The man muttered something under his breath and took my app. After I left, I decided I would most likely not be accepting a position there because of the strangeness of the situation. And I really just regretted leaving my phone number, address, and other personal info on the app. Later that evening, while I'm at home watching the Olympics in my living room around 10 o'clock or so, I go into my bedroom to grab my phone off the charger. And I see that I have a missed call from just a few minutes earlier. It's strange for anyone to be calling me so late, but I redialed the number to satisfy my curiosity. A woman with a thick accent answers and demands to know who is calling. I politely told her that I had missed a call from this number, and she starts screaming, "No, no, no," and then called me by my alias at the top of her lungs and hangs up. It freaked me out that she had used my name in her crazy talk, but figured it was some crackhead that misdialed my number. I take my phone back with me into the living room and sit down. Right then, my phone starts ringing again. I answer it, and it's the man from the hotel yelling my name over and over again. He's literally screaming at the top of his lungs, and I can hear the woman yelling too. I could catch pieces of what they were saying, but between their accents and both of them screaming, it was really difficult to get it all. I know it doesn't make sense, but really all I heard was, "Disturb my phone, disturb your life. You can't see," and that was about it. I hung up really fast, and I proceeded to flip out. They called me back about 14 times within 20 minutes, and thankfully, I don't have my voicemail set up, so they couldn't leave any. My husband came home around midnight, and I told him what was happening. He brushed it off, though, and said that they were probably on drugs and just dialed my number to mess with me. But I really hated the fact that these people had a decent chunk of my personal information, and I figured they were too crazy to do anything but make creepy phone calls at night. So, I was finally able to calm down enough to get to sleep around 3 o'clock in the morning. About half an hour later, I wake up to my dog barking, growling, and charging at the back door. I know immediately something is wrong because she never acts like this and is well trained. My husband and I both sprinted into the living room and saw a hand reaching through the doggy door, clawing at the tile. I screamed, and my husband grabbed me, and we went into the bedroom and locked the door. I dialed the police, and thankfully they were there within 10 minutes, but unfortunately, the man was long gone. But I knew exactly who it was. I gave them my statement and showed them my call log from earlier. They tried to call the number, but it was a prepaid phone, so there wasn't a lot they could do to trace it. By the time the police left, it was around 5:30 in the morning, which was okay with me since I wouldn't be able to sleep anyways. A few hours later, my husband, who was still really pissed off, and I decided to go to the hotel to try to get some information about the guy and inform the staff that this guy was nuts. We spoke to the manager there, and he told us that the man I described had been fired a year ago for stalking a housemaid. What the hell was he doing in the lobby then? Last week, they checked the security cameras and discovered that he was constantly around the hotel and staring in the windows. I guess he had somehow snuck in while the manager left the desk. Right as I walked in, the manager contacted the police and was able to file trespassing charges against him. Now at least the police are looking for him. At this point, I was in tears, and I had given a crazy person all of my info, and he was harassing and stalking me. I'm still receiving phone calls from strange numbers during the night, but luckily he hasn't returned to the house as far as I know. I contacted my references I had used on my application to let them know what was going on. Apparently, my old boss was left a voicemail at around 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday of heavy breathing and perhaps some sex noises and moans. This past week, I haven't been able to sleep at all, and I'm a nervous wreck. I jump out of my skin every time my phone rings or I hear my dog barking. This definitely isn't the scariest story, but it's nice to be able to write everything out.